So today we will be discussing the fourth chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, which is entitled Transcendental Knowledge or Jnana Yoga. Lord Krishna begins this chapter by describing the history of the Bhagavad Gita. Several millions of years ago, Krishna first instructed this Bhagavad Gita to the sun god. Now, why did he instruct it to specifically the sun god? That is explained. The sun is the king of all the planets, and the sun god rules over the sun planet. This sun planet is controlling all other planets by supplying heat and light. The sun is rotating in its orbit under the order of Lord Krishna. Lord Krishna therefore made the sun god his first disciple to understand the science of Bhagavad Gita. The sun god, after receiving this knowledge of Bhagavad Gita from Krishna, he instructed the same to Manu. Manu is the father of mankind. And Manu in turn instructed this same knowledge of Bhagavad Gita to Ikshvaku. Who is Ikshvaku? Ikshvaku was the first king of the earth planet in the present millennium. In this way, the science of Bhagavad Gita was received through the chain of disciplic succession. What is disciplic succession? Just like sun god is the first disciple to receive this knowledge directly from Krishna. So then the sun god becomes the guru, the teacher, to instruct the same knowledge of Bhagavad Gita to Manu. Manu becomes the next guru to instruct this knowledge to Ikshvaku. In this way, Krishna tells that in the chain of disciplic succession, guru to disciple, generation after generation, this knowledge has been actually coming down, the same knowledge of Bhagavad Gita, which Krishna instructed the sun god. But in course of time, this knowledge was lost. And therefore, Krishna is telling Arjuna that ancient knowledge of Bhagavad Gita, I am now instructing that same knowledge to you. Krishna is telling Arjuna, because he is telling Arjuna, you are my devotee as well as my friend, and therefore you can understand the transcendental mystery of this science of Bhagavad Gita. So here, one important point is that there is a certain qualification required for understanding the mystery of Bhagavad Gita. What is that qualification? One can understand Bhagavad Gita if one is a devotee situated in a relationship with Krishna. So the approach to Bhagavad Gita should be in a mood of devotion, just like Arjuna approached Krishna. Arjuna said to Krishna when he was confused about his duty, I am a soul surrendered to you as your disciple. Kindly instruct me. So this is the mood of devotion, and only in this mood, if one approaches the study of Bhagavad Gita, can one understand the mystery of the science of Bhagavad Gita. Now Arjuna is asking Krishna a question. He didn't ask any question at the beginning of this chapter. He is asking Krishna a question now. Arjuna is saying, the sun god is senior by birth to you. He is telling Krishna. How can I understand that in the beginning you instructed this signs of Bhagavad Gita to the Sun God? So Krishna's reply to this question by Arjuna is very significant. Krishna tells Arjuna, many, many births both you and I have passed. I can remember all my previous births, but you cannot. Now, why is it that Krishna can remember and Arjuna cannot? So it is explained that Krishna, even though he keeps taking birth in this world again and again, he never changes his body. Krishna's body, or we say Krishna's form, is spiritual, and it is never changing. What is the meaning of a spiritual body? Spiritual body is not like our body which we have now. Our body is called a material body. Material body, as we all know, changes from childhood to youth to old age, and finally it perishes at the time of death. But a spiritual body never changes. It is eternally youthful, and this spiritual body has no birth. Obviously, therefore, it doesn't have any death, no old age, no disease, no fear of coronavirus infection. Now, what Krishna will explain is how we can get that spiritual body, each one of us, if we understand what Krishna is explaining in this chapter. So listen carefully now. Krishna says the speciality about Krishna's birth. Obviously, Krishna's birth is not like our birth. Whenever we take birth, we are forced to accept this material body, not out of choice. We are forced. But Krishna never accepts a material body. He comes in his original spiritual body, which is always eternally youthful, beautiful. So Krishna says to Arjuna the secret of his repeated birth in this world. Actually, Krishna's birth is called by a special name incarnation. You would have heard the word incarnation. In Sanskrit we say avatara. Krishna's avatara, God's incarnation. So that incarnation, it appears like Krishna is taking birth. From the Srimad Bhagavatam we know Krishna was born as the son of another king, Vasudeva. So what is this birth of Krishna as the son of Vasudeva? It appears like ordinary birth. But Krishna says no. He says, although I am unborn, that means Krishna never takes birth like we do, and his transcendental body never deteriorates. Now we should understand from the Bhagavad Gita, as we have discussed in the second chapter, that for one who is born there is death, and for one who dies there is birth or rebirth. Since Krishna never dies, there is no birth for him, or there is no rebirth for him. Therefore Krishna says he is unborn, and his transcendental body or spiritual body never deteriorates, never changes, never becomes old. And although Krishna is always in his original position as the Supreme Lord of everyone, still Krishna incarnates in every millennium in his original transcendental body. So this is the speciality about Krishna's birth in this world. Strictly speaking, it is not a birth. Prabhupada uses the word appearance. Appearance and disappearance. He comes and he goes. He comes from the spiritual world to this world, to our world, and he goes back to the spiritual world. That in effect is what is Krishna's birth. And there is no death for Krishna, we say disappearance. Now, when does Krishna incarnate? He says in every millennium. When does he incarnate specifically? Krishna says, whenever and wherever there is a decline in religious practice, and when there is a predominant rise of irreligion, at that time Krishna says, I incarnate in this world. Why does he incarnate? He says he incarnates for three purposes: to deliver the pious people, to annihilate the miscreants, as well as to re-establish the principles of religion. Krishna says, I incarnate for these three purposes in every millennium. What is the benefit of understanding all these special things about Krishna? Krishna says, one who understands this transcendental nature of Krishna's incarnation and activities, such a person, upon leaving the present body, that means when such a person dies, he will not take birth again in this world, but he will go to Krishna's personal spiritual planet. So, understanding Krishna's birth in this world, understanding the nature of Krishna's activities, is going to give us a spiritual body like Krishna's. And in such a spiritual body, we are transferred to Krishna's spiritual planet. We are transferred to Krishna's spiritual planet. Never again we have to take birth in this world in another material body. Never again we'll have to suffer disease or old age or death or rebirth. Now, Krishna further elaborates how does this happen, that understanding the peculiarity of Krishna's birth and activities in this world, how does it work? Krishna says that by getting this knowledge, a person becomes free from three things: attachment, fear, and anger. Now, these are three disqualifications for anyone who wants to go to Krishna's spiritual planet. So, you can become free from all kinds of attachment, all kinds of fear, and especially he mentions this anger, becoming free from anger. In this way, one can become fully absorbed in thought of Krishna and take complete shelter of Krishna alone. See, this is in contrast to our normal way of living in this world, where we are always having some fear. We have some attachments. We sometimes become angry, even though we may try to control anger. Not always we are successful in controlling our anger. And then we also try to take shelter of so many different other things in this world. But somebody who has got proper knowledge about Krishna, such a person never takes shelter of anyone else or any other arrangement. Such a person takes complete shelter of Krishna only. And the result is, by taking shelter of Krishna, by becoming fully absorbed in thought of Krishna, one becomes purified of all reactions. And in that purified state, Krishna says one becomes eligible to go to Krishna's spiritual planet in the spiritual world. Now, Krishna further explains his actual position when he incarnates in this world. Some more details, so that we don't mistake Krishna to be taking birth like another ordinary person. No. Even though he is born as the son of a Kshatriya, people may think, oh, he is another Kshatriya. Krishna says he is not actually a Kshatriya. He doesn't belong to any classification of people of this world. Because his position is the supreme lord of everyone and everything. So even when he takes birth as a son of King Vasudeva in this world, his position is unchanged. He still remains the supreme lord. And his position as supreme lord, particularly he mentions here that as the lord of everyone, it is Krishna only who gives reward for every activity every person performs. Everyone is very much anxious, no, about the result of the work they do. They want success. So who is awarding the success? Sometimes people think success is in my hands. If I do things properly, with proper determination, with proper understanding, with expertise, with skill, I can be successful in all my endeavors. But actually people are mistaken. Krishna reveals here that he is the one who gives the result of any activity anybody performs in this world, because he is the Lord of everyone. Now, as far as Krishna himself, he is concerned, he has no need to do any work for getting any result, because he is the Lord. And therefore, understanding this truth about Krishna, because people try to understand Krishna by analyzing some activities he performed when he incarnated, let's say 5,000 years back. Whether he did things right, whether he was following some rules or he was breaking some rules. Now, such analysis about Krishna is completely wrong, because Krishna is not a person who has to work for getting some benefit or result. He's the Lord. So therefore, he says, understanding this particular position, supreme position of Krishna, a person can become free from all reactions to all the works he does. Simply understanding this fact about Krishna. Now, Krishna tells Arjuna that in the past, many kings like the sun god, Manu, Ikshvaku, whose names he mentioned in the beginning of this chapter, all of them, they acted with this understanding of Krishna's spiritual position, spiritual nature, and thereby they all became completely free from all reactions. So he tells Arjuna, you should also perform your duties following in their footsteps, so that you can also become free from all reactions to your work and thereby become eligible to go to Krishna's spiritual planet after quitting this present body. Next, Krishna explains the secret about different kinds of activities a person can perform in this world. Generally, people who are conversant with some Vedic knowledge, they know there are two kinds of activities, pious activities and sinful activities, generally called as punya karma and papa karma. Krishna explains, apart from these two types of activities, pious and sinful, or punya and papa, there is a third kind of activity that Krishna describes as devotional work. Many people don't know this. Only those who study Bhagavad Gita can understand there is a third kind of activity we can perform. Now, what is the need for this third kind of activity? People would think, as long as I do pious work, that's good enough for me. No, Krishna explains both pious work and sinful work are giving reactions, which is the cause of our bondage, our accepting repeated birth and consequently suffering in this world. So, if you want to completely become free from repetition of birth and death, you should perform devotional work. Now, devotional work, Krishna explains, is performed in full knowledge about certain things. Krishna describes the characteristics of a person who has full knowledge, because of which such a person always performs devotional work and never becomes entangled in any reactions. Some of the characteristics he mentions: such a person works without any desire for sense enjoyment. Common people, as we all know, ordinarily, if they do some work, it is because they want to enjoy. But Krishna says devotional work is of the nature that, or characteristic that, one performs devotional work without any desire for sense enjoyment. Now, such a person, his work is free from all reactions, because the reactions of the work are completely burnt away by the fire of perfect knowledge. See the power of knowledge. There is a common English saying, knowledge is power. Here we can understand what is the power of transcendental knowledge, spiritual knowledge. What is the power? It can burn away the reactions of all work. Like this, Krishna explains several characteristics of a person who works in proper knowledge, spiritual knowledge. And the conclusion is, if you want to really become free from all reactions, you have to do devotional work. Now, in the chapter on Karma Yoga, Krishna had said, if you want freedom from bondage, you should do all work as sacrifice to Vishnu. Now, is there any connection between sacrifice to Vishnu and devotional work? That Krishna explains in the next portion of this chapter. He says there is a mystery behind performing sacrifices. First of all, he describes that there are many types of sacrifices which are described in the Vedas. What are some of the types of sacrifices that are described in the Vedas? He mentions some of them. Some yogis offer sacrifice to the Devatas. Others offer sacrifice to the Supreme Brahman. Then there are brahmacharis who offer sacrifice of the hearing process. And there are grihasthas, ideal grihasthas, who follow the Vedic injunctions to lead a regulated householder life. They sacrifice sense enjoyment. Then there are people who control their mind and senses and offer sacrifice in the controlled mind. Then there are some people who undertake severe austerities and practice Ashtanga Yoga. It is one type of yoga practice recommended in the Vedic scriptures. Then some people accept strict vows of living a very austere life, and they sacrifice their material possessions. Then there are others who study the Vedic scriptures, and in this way they advance in transcendental knowledge. So their study itself is a form of sacrifice. Then there are those who practice pranayama, or some breathing exercises as described in the Vedic scriptures. Now they perform sacrifice through controlling their breathing itself. There are yet others who simply by controlling their eating, they are performing sacrifice. So Krishna concludes by telling all these performers of different sacrifices recommended in the Vedas, They know the meaning of sacrifice. That's why they undertake so much trouble to do the sacrifice. And because of that, they become cleansed of all reactions. And in this way, they make gradual progress towards attaining the spiritual kingdom of God. Krishna says the importance of sacrifice is that without sacrifice, no one can live happily in this world or in this planet. Therefore, sacrifice is absolutely essential for anybody who is seeking happiness. Now, all these different sacrifices, why are there so many different types of sacrifices mentioned in the Vedas? Krishna says they are suited for people with different inclinations to work. As we know, not all people have got the same nature to work in a particular way. Different people are inclined to work differently. So according to their inclination to work differently, there are different types of sacrifices recommended. Now, among these various sacrifices, Krishna clarifies that better than simply sacrifice some material possessions, one should perform sacrifice to acquire transcendental knowledge. Why? Because the ultimate goal of all sacrifices is transcendental knowledge. So now you can understand why is it that sacrifice, work done as sacrifice, results in freedom from reaction. Because sacrifices lead to transcendental knowledge, and working in transcendental knowledge is called devotional work, and devotional work does not yield any reaction. So in this chapter, Krishna has linked that sacrifice, performance of sacrifice, to becoming free from reactions through acquiring transcendental knowledge. Now, to learn this transcendental knowledge properly, Krishna recommends approach a bona fide spiritual master. Now he explains two things. What should be the qualification of a aspiring student who wants to get transcendental knowledge? He says such an aspiring student should actually submit himself to a bona fide spiritual master. He should render service and he should make proper inquiries. Now the spiritual master also should be having certain qualification. What is that qualification of the spiritual master? He should be situated in transcendental knowledge himself, and he should have also realized the truth. He should have realized the truth. That means there are two aspects of this knowledge. One is the theoretical knowledge itself, which one can acquire by studying or by properly undergoing some training. And the other aspect of transcendental knowledge is realizing that knowledge. That means, realizing means one should be able to act on the platform of such understanding. So, a bona fide spiritual master is not only having this theoretical knowledge, transcendental knowledge, but he also has realized and therefore is perfectly acting on the platform of that transcendental knowledge. Now, what is this transcendental knowledge all about? To summarize, in one sentence, Krishna summarizes what is this transcendental knowledge. He says, by this knowledge, he tells Arjuna, you'll be able to see that all living beings, without any exception, are part of Krishna. They are situated in Krishna and they belong to Krishna. Three things he says about transcendental knowledge. All living beings are part of Krishna, they are situated in Krishna, and they belong to Krishna. Now this understanding is very, very important. This is the spiritual vision of every living being. Just like in the second chapter, Krishna says everyone is spirit soul, not the body. Now this spirit soul is explained by Krishna here as a part of Krishna. Krishna is the Supreme Spirit, the Supreme Whole, the complete whole. And everyone else is a tiny part. Part means each one of us, we have a relationship with Krishna. And that relationship can be discovered by acquiring this transcendental knowledge. That's what this chapter is all about. Now, something wonderful about transcendental knowledge, Krishna says, he glorifies this transcendental knowledge as follows. He says, even if somebody is considered the most sinful person, when he is situated in transcendental knowledge, he is easily able to become completely sinless. It is just like a blazing fire turns all firewood to ashes. Similarly, the fire of transcendental knowledge burns away all reactions to all kinds of work. So in this world, there is nothing as sublime and pure as transcendental knowledge. And one who has become accomplished in the practice of devotional service attains this knowledge within himself in course of time. In other words, Krishna says, if you want to get this transcendental knowledge, if you want to realize this transcendental knowledge, simply by engaging in devotional service, you can actually get this knowledge and realize also. Further, he says, a faithful person who is dedicated to transcendental knowledge is eligible to get this knowledge. And having achieved such knowledge, he quickly attains the supreme spiritual peace. Now, in the second chapter, Krishna had explained that peace is a prerequisite for attaining the kingdom of God. So, one who is dedicated to transcendental knowledge gets such knowledge and attains the supreme spiritual peace. But if somebody is ignorant and faithless because he has doubt about Krishna's statement in this Bhagavad Gita, such a person will not get transcendental knowledge. Instead, he will fall down from his position and become more and more entangled in this world. Now, one who acts in devotional service, renouncing the results of all his activities, and whose doubts are destroyed by transcendental knowledge, such a person, Krishna concludes, is free from all reactions, is completely pure. Therefore, Krishna is finally concluding his instruction on transcendental knowledge to Arjuna. He tells, whatever doubts that have arisen in your heart, you should become free from all such doubts by situating yourself in transcendental knowledge. And in this way, you should stand up and fight. See, again, Krishna is giving a decisive instruction. Arjuna is always thinking, should I fight or should I not fight? Third chapter, Arjuna had asked, tell me decisively whether I should fight or not. The conclusion was, Arjuna should fight. Fourth chapter, again, after explaining what is the link between sacrifice and becoming free from reactions through the explanation of transcendental knowledge, Krishna again tells Arjuna, becoming situated in transcendental knowledge, stand up and fight. And that's the end of this chapter.